Imagine stepping into a clearing 30,000 years ago. The cold bites your skin, the air smells of smoke and blood, and suddenly you lock eyes with a Cro Magnon hunter. He's shorter than you, but built like stone, gripping a wooden spear hardened in fire. In that moment, you realize this isn't a fight you can win. Modern muscles, modern comfort, even modern weapons wouldn't prepare you for the raw brutality of prehistoric survival. Think you'd stand a chance against our prehistoric cousins? Let's find out. Chapter 1. The Cro Magnon Warrior Body. Let's get one thing out of the way right now. Cro Magnons weren't cavemen in the cartoon sense. They weren't stumbling around with clubs, grunting at the moon. These were humans, anatomically modern in fact, but hardened in ways we can barely imagine. If you were to stand next to one, you'd notice immediately the body was different. First, their bones. Cro Magnons had denser, thicker bones than us. That doesn't sound like much, but it's a game changer in a fight. Denser bones mean their skeletons could handle way more impact, whether that's smashing into the ground, taking a hit, or swinging a weapon over and over without breaking down. Imagine trying to land a punch only to realize your opponent's frame is basically reinforced like stone. Then the muscles. Forget protein shakes and gym memberships. These people were born into a life that was exercise. From childhood, they were carrying water, hauling firewood, climbing, hunting, and skinning animals. Every single daily activity built muscle. Cro Magnons had shorter, stockier builds compared to many modern humans, but that compact frame packed raw power. Think of an Olympic wrestler's body, but forged by survival, not training programs. And here's something most people don't realize: endurance. Modern humans collapse quickly without snacks, hydration, and rest. Cro Magnons, on the other hand, were persistence hunters. That means they literally chased animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey overheated and collapsed. Their lungs, their legs, their ability to keep going, it was on another level. So while a modern human might come out swinging for a few minutes, a Cro Magnon could just wait it out, breathing steadily, knowing you'd tire long before they did. All of this adds up to one truth. If you fought a Cro Magnon, you wouldn't just be facing a human. You'd be up against a body fine-tuned for survival through hundreds of generations of struggle. Bone-crushing strength, muscular efficiency, and an engine built to run forever. And the worst part? They didn't even think of it as strength. For them, this was just life. If you really want to understand Cro Magnon's strength, you have to stop thinking in terms of workouts and start thinking in terms of survival. For them, every single day was physical training, not optional, not a choice. Survival itself was the gym. Picture this: sunrise. The tribe is already awake, because sleeping in isn't a luxury when predators prowl and food is scarce. The first task is firewood. That means hacking branches, carrying massive logs, dragging them across uneven terrain. Your morning warm-up is already harder than most of today's fitness classes. Then comes the hunt. Hunting wasn't a quick sprint with a bow. It was grueling, calculated, and sometimes terrifying. Cro Magnons chased down mammoths, bison, and deer across landscapes filled with ice, rivers, and cliffs. Spears weren't fired from safe distances like arrows. They were often thrown up close, or even thrust directly into an animal weighing several times their own body mass. Imagine bracing yourself against the charge of an enraged beast, spear in hand, knowing that a single mistake means you're trampled or gutted. That's not a chest day workout. That's life or death conditioning. And it didn't stop there. After a kill, there was butchering, hauling hundreds of pounds of meat back to camp, stripping hides with stone tools, stretching skins into clothing. Every step required endurance, fine motor skills, and an unshakable will to keep going. Even the so-called quiet tasks were brutal, grinding stone into blades, sharpening spears with fire-hardened tips, chipping away at flint until it cut sharp enough to slice flesh. Every repetitive motion built not only muscle, but durability. Forearms, shoulders, and grip strength modern humans can barely fathom. This constant movement, this relentless grind, meant Cro Magnons weren't just strong for special occasions. They were strong all the time. They didn't train to fight. They lived in a way that made them fight ready 24/7. So imagine stepping into that ring, you with your modern comforts, them with a lifetime of raw survival training. They don't even need to try hard. You're already outmatched. Let's be brutally honest here. Most modern humans wouldn't even last the opening round against a Cro Magnon. And it's not just about brute force, it's about stamina, pain tolerance, and mental grit. Think about how quickly we burn out. Run a few blocks and most people are winded. Skip lunch and we're cranky. Miss a night's sleep and suddenly it feels like torture. Now compare that to a Cro Magnon. These people could go hours without food, push through bone-deep exhaustion, and keep hunting, building, or fighting without hesitation. Their entire biology was trained to keep going when we'd already quit. Pain tolerance is another killer. Today, we reach for painkillers at the first headache or muscle ache. Cro Magnons had no such luxury. Broken bones, deep cuts, frostbite, these were everyday realities, and yet they kept moving because stopping meant death. In a fight, that means they could take hits that would leave us doubled over and keep swinging like nothing happened. Now picture the psychology of the fight. You, modern, comfortable, used to rules and safety nets, square off with someone who has never known comfort, who has lived with predators, starvation, and rival tribes from birth. When you're tired, panicked, and second-guessing yourself, they're calm, focused. They've done this before, many times, not in sport, but in survival. The fight would play out like this. You'd start strong, maybe even land a hit. But within minutes, your arms feel heavy, your lungs are on fire, and your legs turn to lead. The Cro Magnon, still moving, still watching, still waiting for the opening. When it comes, it's over fast. That's the reality. You don't just lose because they're stronger. You lose because their entire existence forged them into warriors we simply can't measure up to. And this is only the beginning, because muscle and stamina are just one part of the equation. The real danger comes when you factor in the weapons, the tactics, and the mindset of someone who's been fighting to survive since birth.
Chapter 2: Weapons of Survival versus Modern Weakness. When people hear Stone Age weapons, they often imagine crude sticks and dull rocks. But here's the shocking truth. Cro Magnon weapons were not primitive. They were perfectly adapted killing tools. In fact, if you squared up against one in a fight, their so-called simple weapons would make short work of you. Start with the spear. Cro Magnons weren't just jabbing branches into animals. They engineered them. Hardened in fire, tipped with razor-sharp flint, these spears could pierce the hide of a woolly mammoth or slice through flesh like a knife. A single thrust could end a fight instantly. And unlike a modern knife, this weapon was designed to endure brutal impact. You've maybe handled a kitchen knife or swung a baseball bat. They trained with spears from childhood. Then there were clubs. A heavy piece of wood or bone doesn't sound impressive until you realize the force behind it. With Cro Magnon muscle, a club could shatter bones, crush skulls, and end confrontations in one brutal strike. No padding, no referees, no hold back. Every swing was meant to kill. And let's not forget the flint blade. chipped stone edges were so sharp they've been compared to surgical scalpels. Archaeologists have found tools sharper than modern steel under microscopes. Imagine facing someone with a blade that doesn't just cut skin, it rips through muscle and sinew in one motion. One slip, one shallow cut, and you'd be bleeding out in the dirt. What makes this even more terrifying is that these weren't just weapons, they were extensions of Cro Magnon life. Every hunt, every tribal conflict, every moment of danger refined their use. For them, these tools weren't primitive, they were the difference between life and death, honed over tens of thousands of years. So, while you might picture yourself stepping into a fight armed with modern confidence, the reality is this: a Cro Magnon with a spear, a club, or a blade isn't primitive at all. They're lethal, efficient, and mercilessly effective, and you're already at a disadvantage. Here's something we forget. Cro Magnons didn't practice fighting the way we think of it. They didn't have gyms, boxing rings, or martial arts classes, but they did have something far more brutal: the hunt. And the hunt was the perfect combat school. Think about what hunting required: patience, teamwork, stealth, and the ability to strike with lethal precision at exactly the right moment. Cro Magnons would stalk prey for hours, sometimes days, waiting for the chance to move. Every step was a lesson in footwork, in reading the environment, in conserving energy until it mattered most. You can't buy that kind of training. It's wired into your survival. Then comes the attack. Unlike modern hunting with rifles, this wasn't from a safe distance. They closed in on prey weighing thousands of pounds, animals capable of killing with a single charge. To survive, they had to dodge, anticipate movements, and land devastating blows. That's not just hunting, that's live combat experience, day in, day out. And don't underestimate the teamwork. Cro Magnons hunted in groups, coordinating to drive animals into traps or ambushes. That meant they learned flanking, surrounding, and overwhelming their target, tactics that work just as well on prey as they do on an enemy. If you fought a Cro Magnon, you wouldn't just be fighting one person, you'd be fighting the product of a culture that had mastered group warfare through hunting. Now here's the kicker. Every successful hunt ended with death. Every spear thrust, every blade strike was meant to kill quickly and decisively. There was no pulling punches, no second chances. This mindset carried directly into combat with rival tribes. The same strategies that brought down mammoths could and did bring down other humans. So when you imagine stepping into that fight, remember this: you've maybe thrown a few punches at a bag. They've spent their entire lives practicing lethal strikes on beasts far bigger and tougher than you. And unlike you, they never missed a lesson. Here's where the contrast gets ugly. Modern humans like us don't think about survival tools anymore, we think about convenience. We've built our world around weapons so advanced that we've forgotten how to fight without them. Guns, tasers, even kitchen knives are all point and click compared to what Cro Magnon had to master. But here's the trap. Take those modern conveniences away, and most of us are helpless. Give the average person a sharpened stick and toss them into the wilderness. They'd struggle to even land a hit on a rabbit. A Cro Magnon, on the other hand, would turn that same stick into a killing tool within hours. The difference isn't just technology, it's skill. Think about how reliant we are on gear. Camping? We need tents, lighters, pre-packed food, GPS. Cro Magnons had none of that, and yet they thrived. Their weapons didn't come from factories. They came from their hands, their minds, and their sheer will to survive. Every spear they threw was handcrafted, every blade chipped from stone with painstaking precision. To us, that seems like primitive craftsmanship. To them, it was second nature. Now imagine a fight. You, maybe armed with some makeshift object, versus a Cro Magnon with a weapon they not only made but have used their entire life. They understand the weight, the balance, the perfect angle to strike. That weapon is an extension of their body. Yours, an unfamiliar tool you're desperately trying to figure out before it's too late. This is why primitive weapons were never really primitive. They were precise, deadly, and battle-tested. And our modern dependency on easy, instant technology has left us soft. Against a Cro Magnon, that weakness would show in seconds. So if you strip away the safety of modern gear, who's armed? Spoiler, it's not us. Chapter 3. The Brutal Mindset of Prehistoric Combat. If you want to know why Cro Magnons would crush us in a fight, it's not just about their muscles or weapons. It's about what was going on inside their heads. Their entire psychology was wired for survival in a world that wanted them dead. Imagine growing up in a place where danger never went away. Every sound at night could be a predator. Every rival tribal encounter could explode into violence. Every winter storm could freeze you to death if you weren't prepared. There were no safe zones, no hospitals, no backup plans. Life itself was a battlefield, and Cro Magnons lived on high alert from birth until death. That constant exposure shaped their minds into something modern humans can't easily relate to. Today, most of us panic if the Wi-Fi goes out or if we're stuck in traffic. For them, panic wasn't an option. Fear meant hesitation, and hesitation meant death. So they didn't just face danger, they normalized it. They adapted until daily life felt like combat training.
And predators? Let's be clear. We're not talking about stray dogs or wild boars. We're talking saber-toothed cats, giant cave bears, and packs of wolves hunting the same food sources humans depended on. A Cro Magnon child grew up knowing these animals weren't in zoos. They were lurking in the dark, waiting for the moment you slipped. That kind of awareness sharpens instincts. It builds a brain that never shuts off, that notices every sound, every shadow, every shift in the wind. Add rival tribes into the mix. Cro Magnons weren't the only humans around. Neanderthals, other groups of Homo sapiens, even distant Denisovans. Competition for resources was constant, and competition often turned violent. Imagine knowing that other humans weren't neighbors. They were potential enemies, always testing your strength, always ready to kill you for food or territory. This was the Cro Magnon reality. Every sunrise could be your last, so you lived ready to fight, not someday, but every day. And when your mind has been hardened by that kind of relentless pressure, stepping into combat against a modern human wouldn't feel like a fight. It would feel like just another day. Here's the thing about Cro Magnon fighting. There were no rules, no referees, no points, no fair play. Combat wasn't a sport, it was survival. And when survival is on the line, the human brain unlocks a level of brutality that most of us today can't even process. Think about how we're conditioned now. Even in street fights, there's hesitation. Most people don't want to kill. They pull punches. They aim for safe hits. They stop when the other person is down. That instinct to hold back is a modern luxury, a product of law, morality, and consequence. Cro Magnons had none of that. If they fought to the death, always. Their instincts were animalistic. They didn't think in terms of winning a fight. They thought in terms of eliminating a threat as quickly as possible. That meant going for soft spots, eyes, throat, stomach. They biting, clawing, using rocks, dirt, or even teeth as weapons. If you were down, they didn't give you a chance to get back up. They finished you, brutally. Now, combine that with their experience. Every hunt taught them precision, where to strike an animal to kill it fast. They knew exactly how to puncture organs, snap bones, and disable prey. Against a human opponent, those lessons carried over seamlessly. While you're flailing with sloppy punches, they're driving a sharpened stone into your ribs or smashing your skull with a strike they've perfected over years of survival.
And don't forget, Cro Magnons had no psychological breaks, no court system to fear, no guilt drilled into them from childhood about violence. To them, spilling blood was as normal as making fire. That lack of hesitation is deadly. Modern humans freeze in shock at violence. Cro Magnons moved through it like it was second nature. So when you picture yourself fighting one, strip away everything you think you know about fairness or sportsmanship. There's no honor here, no clean fight, just instincts honed in a kill or be killed world. And in that world, hesitation isn't weakness, it's death. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern humans are trained from birth not to be violent. We're raised with rules, laws, and moral codes that hold society together. That's good for civilization, but disastrous in a life or death fight. Think about it. In a sudden confrontation, most people freeze. Their brains start calculating, am I really about to hurt someone? What if I get in trouble? What if I injure them too badly? That split second of hesitation is all it takes for someone without those breaks to end you. And Cro Magnons, they didn't hesitate. They didn't pause to weigh morality or worry about consequences. They acted instantly, and they acted decisively. Even our fighting styles show this weakness. Today's martial arts, boxing, MMA, they're all bound by rules. No gouging eyes, no crushing throats, no stomping someone once they're down. But Cro Magnons didn't fight for trophies. They fought for food, fire, territory, survival. Their playbook included everything we've outlawed: bone-breaking, suffocation, biting, and the kind of savage finishes that make us recoil in disgust. Add to this our physical softness. A scraped knuckle or twisted ankle can take us out of commission for days. Cro Magnons lived with constant pain and pushed through it. If you landed a hit, it might stagger them, but it wouldn't stop them. They were used to bleeding, used to breaking, used to suffering. For us, pain is an emergency. For them, it was background noise. This is why the fight is so one-sided. Modern humans hesitate, question themselves, and back down when things get too brutal. Cro Magnons didn't. Their brains were wired for decisive, instinctual violence, not because they were monsters, but because their world demanded it. So the question isn't, could you beat a Cro Magnon? The real question is, could you even act before they crushed you? The truth is, hesitation kills. And in the Stone Age, hesitation didn't exist. Chapter 4. The Environment as Their Weapon. If you think the fight with a Cro Magnon would be one-on-one, think again. You wouldn't just be fighting them, you'd be fighting the Ice Age. And trust me, the Ice Age is not on your side. Start with the cold. Cro Magnons lived in an unforgiving climate where temperatures regularly dropped below freezing. They adapted with thick animal skins, fire mastery, and a tolerance to cold that would shatter us. You step into that environment in your sneakers and hoodie, and your body starts shutting down before the fight even begins. They thrived in it. The cold wasn't a weakness, it was home turf. Now, layer in the terrain. We're talking jagged rocks, dense forests, icy rivers, and open plains stretching for miles. Cro Magnons didn't just survive here, they used it. They knew which paths predators traveled, which cliffs could trap prey, which rivers could drown enemies. In a fight, they'd pull you into the terrain like a second weapon. You'd be slipping on ice, stumbling over roots, and gasping for air in brutal winds. They'd be steady, sure-footed, and ready. And then there's the scarcity of resources. Food wasn't waiting in grocery stores. It was fought for daily. That scarcity hardened them into opportunists. Every scrap of meat, every bone, every tool mattered. They learned to stretch resources, to adapt, to survive on less. For you, hunger after a few hours makes you weak and irritable. For them, hunger was fuel, a push to hunt harder, fight harder, endure longer.
All of this stacks the odds brutally against you. In a fight, you're not just up against a Cro Magnon's body and mind. You're battling the freezing air cutting into your lungs, the terrain tripping you up, and the crushing realization that this is their world, not yours. For Cro Magnons, the Ice Age wasn't an obstacle, it was an ally, and if you stepped into it, you'd already lost before the first blow was struck. For Cro Magnons, to land wasn't just something they lived on, it was part of their arsenal. They knew every hill, every cave, every river crossing, and they turned that knowledge into a survival advantage. Picture this, two tribes clashing over hunting grounds. Modern humans might imagine a brawl in an open field, but Cro Magnons would never fight on neutral ground. They chose terrain that gave them the edge, narrow passes where enemies could be ambushed, cliffs where a push meant certain death, forests where visibility dropped to nothing. The environment wasn't background, it was a weapon. Even in hunts, these tactics doubled as combat strategies. They drove animals into swamps where they got stuck, into ravines where escape was impossible, or toward hidden traps. Now flip that into human conflict. Imagine being lured into a boggy patch of ground you don't recognize, your feet sinking while a Cro Magnon closes in with a spear. You're not just fighting them, you're fighting the earth beneath you. Water was another tool. Cro Magnons mastered rivers and lakes, not just as food sources, but as barriers. They knew how to ford fast currents, how to use ice sheets to their advantage, and how to drown prey when brute force failed. If combat spilled into these environments, they'd be in their element. You'd be flailing, freezing, and fighting the current as much as the person in front of you. And then there's the cave, the Cro Magnon stronghold. Dark, narrow, defensible. Step inside after them, and suddenly you're the intruder, blind and exposed, while they know every corner, every rock to duck behind, every stone to drop from above. A fight in their home turf wouldn't just be difficult, it would be suicidal. This deep knowledge of land turned every battle into more than just man versus man. It became man versus an entire environment bent against you. Cro Magnons didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with the ground you stood on. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You wouldn't even make it to the fight. The Ice Age world would beat you down long before a Cro Magnon ever lifted a weapon. Start with the cold. Modern humans rely on central heating, insulated houses, and high-tech gear just to handle a winter hike. Strip that away, and your body is in shock within hours. Hypothermia sets in fast, your muscles stiffen, your reflexes slow, and even basic movement becomes agony. A Cro Magnon, wrapped in animal hides and fueled by generations of cold survival, wouldn't just endure the cold, they'd use it against you. Every minute you fought, you'd be getting weaker, slower, closer to collapse. Then there's food. You probably eat 3 meals a day, plus snacks. Cro Magnons sometimes went days without proper food. Their bodies adapted to scarcity. Hunger sharpened them instead of breaking them. Drop you into that world, and your energy would vanish within a day. Weak, irritable, lightheaded. Meanwhile, your opponent is still steady, still fueled by years of surviving on scraps. Don't forget the terrain itself. Cro Magnons spent their entire lives trekking over uneven ground, sprinting across open plains, climbing rocky hills, and navigating icy rivers. One wrong step on that jagged landscape, and you've twisted an ankle. Imagine trying to fight someone while every inch of ground is working against you, while your lungs burn from thin, frozen air, while your body screams for warmth and food. This is why the environment is their ultimate ally. You'd arrive at the battlefield already exhausted, already broken, already desperate. The Cro Magnon wouldn't need to overpower you with sheer strength. The earth itself has already done most of the work. All they'd need to do is finish what the Ice Age started. And the scariest part, they knew it. They weren't just surviving the environment, they were thriving in it. For them, the Ice Age wasn't a curse, it was their training ground. And you wouldn't last a single round. Chapter 5. Who would really win? All right, let's strip away the theories and put it into raw perspective. What happens if you, a modern human, go head-to-head with a Cro Magnon? No weapons, no fancy tech, just body versus body. First, the size difference. Cro Magnons weren't towering giants, but they were dense, stocky, broad-shouldered, with a lower center of gravity. Imagine someone the height of an average modern man, but built like a competitive wrestler. Taller maybe, leaner, but weaker in almost every way. That compact Cro Magnon build gives them explosive power, power you'd feel the second they made contact. Now let's talk about the opening moves. You might throw a punch, sloppy, adrenaline-fueled, maybe you even land it. But here's the reality. Your strike bounces off thicker bone and muscle like it's nothing. Their counter? A grab, a shove, maybe a headbutt, and suddenly you're on the ground, the air knocked from your lungs. They're used to grappling wild animals. You're used to desk chairs and treadmills. There's no contest. Endurance makes it worse. Within minutes, your lungs are screaming, your arms feel like lead, and sweat blinds your eyes. Cro Magnons, bred for persistent hunts and grueling survival, are still fresh. They don't fight in bursts. They fight until it's over. While you're backing up, gasping for air, they're advancing, steady and calm, waiting for the chance to finish. And finish they will. Cro Magnons didn't fight to wear someone down. They fought to eliminate threats. That means bone-crushing strikes, savage grapples, and no hesitation in going for lethal blows. You're not getting up from that. So blow by blow, the fight plays out the same way every time. You start strong, you tire quickly, and they end it decisively. In the raw physical matchup, you don't just lose, you never stood a chance. If you thought the physical mismatch was bad, the psychological and environmental gap makes it hopeless. Because fighting isn't just about muscle, it's about the mind behind the strikes and the ground you're standing on. First, the mindset. You're a modern human, raised in safety, taught to avoid violence, taught that killing is unthinkable. Your brain hesitates when things turn ugly, but a Cro Magnon? Violence wasn't bad, it was survival. They didn't freeze up, didn't second guess. Every movement they made was instinctual, direct, and lethal. Their mind was primed for brutality in a way yours simply isn't.